The Horn Frog Podcast. Let's talk sports with Coach Dub. The Horn Frog Podcast. Good evening, gentlemen. This is Coach Dub coming to you live from downtown Fort Worth with your Horn Frog Podcast. This episode of your Horn Frog Podcast is brought to you proudly by Joe T. Garcia's of Fort Worth. Joe T. Garcia's. If you need a good time, you need Joe T's, the best Mexican food in all of Texas. Going to bring to you this week, Week 3, your offensive and defensive players of the week for the ACC, the Big 10, the Big 12, and the SEC. And we're going to add a little twist to the Horn Frog Podcast with your offensive and defensive players of the week. I now have a category where we're going to call Ouch Performance of the Week. We'll get to that when we jump into the ACC. Starting off in the ACC, your offensive player of the week, Virginia Tech quarterback Floyd the Gunslinger Silver with 25 of 35 for 71%. He had 318 passing yards and 6 passing touchdowns, no sacks, but credit that to the offensive line. And he also had 4 carries for 12 yards. Now looking at your defensive player of the week in ACC, that's going to be Boise State defensive end, Tua Umana, 9 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, and he also added a sack on the day in a dominant win by Boise State. Now jumping over to your Ouch Performance of the week for the ACC. That's going to be Clemson quarterback Tyrus Anthony. He went 8 of 20 for 40%. He only had 230 yards passing and 1 passing touchdown. But he threw 5 interceptions. And that is my Ouch Performance of the week for the ACC. Jumping over to the Big 10, your offensive player of the week is Florida running back Colt Dederick. He had 22 carries, 101 yards, 4.6 yards per carry, and 1 rushing touchdown. And now, your defensive player of the week for the Big 10, that's going to be Florida cornerback Dalton the Comforter Spriggs, because his coverage is heavier than a blanket. He had 4 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 3 interceptions, and he also broke up 2 passes on the day. What a game for Florida cornerback Dalton the Comforter Spriggs. Now looking at your Ouch Performance of the week for the Big 10, that's your Florida quarterback Wayne Aquino. 15 of 23 for 65%. He only threw for 149 yards and 1 touchdown, and he threw 3 interceptions on the day. Jumping over to the SEC, your offensive player of the week is going to be LSU quarterback Brett Kelly. He went 18 of 23 for 78%. He had 494 passing yards, 5 passing touchdowns with only 1 interception. And now for your defensive player of the week for the SEC, that's going to be LSU linebacker Rodney Nagy. He had 11 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, and he also broke up a pass on defense. What a dominant game for Rodney Nagy. And now for your SEC Ouch Performance of the week, that's going to be the LSU starting running back Robert Haywood. He had 9 carries for 16 rushing yards, only 1.8 yards per carry, and no touchdowns on the day. Now we're going to jump over to your Big 12. Looking at your offensive player of the week, that's going to be Penn State quarterback Josh Kaboom Bloom. 15 of 25 for 60%. He threw for 328 passing yards, 6 passing touchdowns, but he also had 2 interceptions. But that's your offensive player of the week, Penn State quarterback Josh Kaboom Bloom. Now for your defensive player of the week for the Big 12, that's going to be your TCU linebacker Jamie Gooden. He had 7 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, and he also added 1.5 sacks on the day as TCU dominated UConn. And your Ouch Performance of the week for the Big 12 is going to be TCU left tackle Cameron Roosevelt, who gave up 2 sacks to a subpar defensive line of a horrible UConn Huskies team. Folks, that's your offensive and defensive players of the week and your new Ouch Performances of the week. This is Coach Dub signing off from Fort Worth.